Yolinda and Tibo.
Joseph.
Anita.
Cliff.
Jonathan.
Yurgis. Adrian. Jim. Michael.
Paula.
Sally. Tiny.
Helen. Julia.
Peter.
Howard.
Ed.
Mitra.
Dean.
Lockie.
And Bob. Go.
Good to see you all, and it's much better to hear you all. It livens the room up. You'll come here and
I'm sorry.
start.
I'm sorry.
Start talking and interrelating with each other. That you can recognise the energy in it all, the life. And that's what we point to, life, intelligence, energy, the activity of knowing. And also point out that it's only one life, non-duality, non-dual, that's what I call it, non-dual. Not two, only the one. That one is absolute, expressing, experiencing as everything. And look at the different shapes and forms in this room, also called human patterns. It's the same life through each and every one of them, but the way it is expressed in myriads of varieties of different ways, different thoughts, different feelings, different activities and emotions. All the one life expressing itself as everything. Look outside, you'll see it's the same. What's it all happening in? And they call it the basic space of phenomena. The base of it all is space. And you don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar to work that out. Can you find a beginning to space? We hardly notice it, but when you do notice it, you really see it as it is. You can't find a beginning to it. There's no point where you can say that this is where it starts. Can you find an end to it? You can imagine, anticipate all sorts of endings to it, implosions, explosions. But if it all implodes, what's it's going to be in it? Has the space gone away? It can't. So it's all that space that pattern shapes and forms and begins and ends and finishes, constantly transient and changing. And you and I and everything else is that. And that's what we lose sight of. We take ourselves to be separate entities, individuals, persons, appearing and expressing in the other patterns which are seen and formed. We take to be the world around us, not realising it's always be broken down into that one essence, that one vibration, pattern of intelligence, energy. And it must be intelligence to express the way it is. It's not just a willy-nilly accidental expression, but the human forms is expressing in this room. It's suffused with that intelligence. The trees, the animals, the birds, the cities, the hills, the mountains, the way the whole universe is stars and planets expressing, implies it's suffused with that nature, intelligence, true nature. And nature means natural, naturally, not some conceptualized or formed or believed in pattern, but as it is, naturally, spontaneous and effortless. Always and ever that. continually patterning, expressing in different shapes and forms. But it's the one life, the one essence, that it's all appearing in that space. Use the analogy of movie and the screen. All the movies appear on the screen. And all sorts of activities can take place on that screen. Seemingly obscuring the screen, you don't see it or realise the screen's there while the movie's on. But when it finishes, and the screen there is the screen, uncontaminated, uncorrupted, untouched by any of the pattern shapes and forms or adventures or experiences or whatever you like to call it, have appeared in it. Take a look at that and see what's going on here. We've taken this idea that we are this person, this body-mind, this individual. And things are happening to me. And we're taking the belief it's separate. We think we are that sense of separation, that individuality. And if that is a belief and understanding that it's individual, it's separate, well, with that comes insecurity, vulnerability, because you see all these things going on around you, out there, and in there, and things are happening to this me here, we got the idea. And if that belief is there, naturally, the things that are happening to me I don't like, or they don't last for long, and I get attached to them, fixated on them, and struggle with them, instead of settling into the natural reality that I am, this thinking goes on. And it's constantly transient, constantly changing. There is nothing static anywhere at all in this manifestation. It's all changing. We don't realise that and recognise and think it's happening to me. And this believed in entity, because the idea of separation has taken place, and I say it becomes insecure because it's seemingly isolated as me and other than me. I'm isolated, I'm separate, I'm not that, and I don't know what that is. And there's a sense of fear. It could be something I don't really know or understand, and try to avoid it or dodge it or push it away, get out of it, instead of recognising it's all life. As they say, there is only life, only. Not your life or my life, but life, only life. And every so-called thing is that life expressing and appearing as so. Even the hills, the mountains, the rivers and everything else are changing. Changing all the time. All the content of space. But look at that. Can you add anything to space? What part of it could you grab and add to it that you think you can add to it, when it's got no boundaries, no sides, no centre, no circumference? Or can you get out of it? Can you get away? And you realise when they say statements that I am that, and we start looking for that, not realising we already know everything as that. Because isn't that a chair you're sitting in? That's the carpet on the floor. That's the room. The room is that. The space in the room. The trees, the flowers, everything you can think of a minute is that. which we again divide with putting the words and the meanings onto it. Where does this come about? Well, have a look. You say, I was born. But can you really remember your birth? People might say, I remember my birth. But how could anybody remember the birth when you had no words to say, I am born, or I am even? You were just, that little baby, that little child is vibrating with that intelligence energy that has spontaneously and naturally come together through the essence of your father and your mother, the life essence in them, formed that little embryo, the little child. And for the first couple of years, while in the womb growing, it didn't have any words, didn't have any idea, didn't have a brain at one stage, as these things were forming. When it formed into its completeness and was born, it still didn't have any words. It was breathing, the heart beating, it was eating and feeling. The little baby, look at it and see. Full of that, suffused with that life, that intelligence, energy. And as it grew, the capacity of reasoning developed into it because it began to take up words, sounds and things like that, and was able to recognise the word, the thinking, and realise it formed more words and pattern, shapes and forms. And then that I am, the sense of beingness, which translates as the thought I am, became I am this body, I am this little child. Or your parents fussing around you has given you a name. Well, I am Bill, or I'm Jane, or I'm so-so. That's something to clutch onto and hang on to, and we do. We hang on to that name. Even today, if somebody asks you, who are you? And you'll say, I am so-and-so. And we stick to it because that's the way it's happening. And a lot of us still believe in it. And when that belief, we're still locked into the concepts, the words, the images, taking them to be real, and the way that's functioning, the vibrating of energy is vibrating into thoughts, feelings and emotions. And that's all that thought is a vibration, a movement of energy, in which words are formed or experiences, things happening, are resonated with and registered. And this conceptual image believes that this is who or what I am. But down through the so-called ages, there have been those that have resonated with it and recognised their true nature. Initially only a very few, because they didn't have the means of travel then or ways of communicating, so they could only pass it on by word of mouth, and not everybody was willing to hear it. Like everybody here right now is not willing to hear it. A lot of you are willing and do hear it. And you know and realise the change that's come about in that pattern is because of that recognition, the recognising, cognising again fresh and new. Let's call it a cognising emptiness in Buddhism, meaning it's that emptiness, the basic space in which there is no appearance, no manifestation. They think the basic space, that emptiness, is what the Buddha calls it, I am. It's that sense of presence. When you've learnt these words, I am, the parents say, that's what you take as, or I am Bill, or Jane. And I keep reinforcing that, not realising that is changing, transient, and what appears good right now, in the concept of time, the seeming future might change, and it mightn't be so good. And that's how it's expressing, always transient, always changing. They call it that, ever changing, but never changing. It never changes from its basic space of phenomena. The appearance, pattern, shapes and forms are continually coming and going, appearing, changing, even as they're here right now in this room. Each and every one of these patterns in this room is changing. Mightn't realise it, but it is. Each breath you take is a fresh and new breath, each heartbeat. It's for making the blood course around the body. It's washing away dead cells and replacing them and doing all sorts of things in there. We're not noticing that. We take it to be what we see, hear, taste or touch or smelling, the feelings, the thoughts, the activities. We put the names and forms on and take them to be real. And it all applies to this entity I believe myself to be. Because some things will come up and I'll like them. Some things I think about and want them to come up, I want them to come. Other things I don't like and I want to get rid of them. Always this vibrating pattern of intelligence energy that I believe myself to be is transient and it's wanting to change. And one of the main things it wants to become. It's heard these stories and tales from others and read some of the scripture and texts and taken on the belief there's something greater than I am. And we believe we have to become that. They call it God, or omnipresence, or omnipotence, omniscience. We think we have to become better than we are as these human beings, because that concept of a human being is really limited. You see, there are other so-called human beings that are better or different from what you are. There are others who don't understand or recognise, or there are things that are happening in this world that's believed to be happening to this particular pattern, shape or form. So all the conceptual ideas, all the thoughts, feelings and emotions that are going on, all that sense of separation and division is causing the sensations, the feelings, the fear, the anxiety, the stress, the jealousy, the envy, the unhappiness. What are all those labels? All labels of words which we've learned, which we attach to the sensation or feeling and take it to be real. But those that have recognised will tell you, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. This idea of God or something higher and greater than we are is nothing but a word. All things were made by Him, by the Word. And isn't that so? That's the chair you're sitting in, that's the table, the chair in the room, that's the space, that's the flower, that's the tree. Everything we have words on. Basically, everything is that one life, one intelligence entity, one is appearing and expressing as everything. But we're seeing it as separate and putting labels on it which seemingly divide and separate it. So we divide it with the word, the concept, the idea. Well, have a look. They tell you this word is not the thing. And have a look at it. Is the word water? Water, can I drink it? It's what we call water, but can I drink the word? The word fire, can I cook with it, eat with it? The word chair, is that the chair? The word table, is that the table? You see, it's all pattern of energy that are seemingly formed by some called human being maybe, or by nature, or whatever, all by that one life, that one essence, pattern, shapes and forms, and expressing as all these things. And we will tell you, why are you unhappy? Because he knows basically that there is unhappiness there. There is fear, there is anxiety. He's recognised it. He's saying, why are you unhappy? And he points out, because everything you say, everything you see, everything you think, and everything you do is for yourself. And there isn't one. Well, what is the self? Well, there it is. It's myself. We gladly claim that. This is me. This is myself. And what we do with that, we form a concept. This body, mind, this pattern, shape and form is what I am. This is me. This is mine. It's mine. And so instead of there being absolute one self, one life, one intelligence energy, there are myriads of patterns, shapes, life and forms in the belief that we are separate and individual. And what are we going to do? We've got to try and find out a way out of this mess where we believe we are this and that. And of course, we take this self, personal self, to be the person, to be the reality. This is what I am, this person, this individual, this separate entity, the concepts I've formed around it. Taking the concepts to be real, instead of recognising without that life, what would be in these patterns, shapes and forms. And we recognise there is a thing, a pattern, shape and form, which is called death. When all the animation and things go out of it, and it just breaks down and goes back into the dust or into the ashes or whatever it is was burned down, into space again when it breaks right down. Where else can it go? Where did it come from? It came from space. It's played around expressing as a seemingly solid, substantial body, mind, pattern, shape and form. But if you look into it, put it under a microscope, and you'll see it's all made up of atoms, subatomic particles, energy. The same as everything around you is that life, is that energy. And we're sitting in here believing we're separate from it. We are individual. Can there be anything at all that can be separate if it is absolute? Absolute means total. No thing can be added to it. No thing can be taken away from it. And the things that are seemingly added to it are also the content of it, the space, appearing as things. So we think we're adding things, but you can't add anything to absolute. and you can't take anything away from it. And is expressing continually as that. The idea we're separate entities with the sense of separation gives us something we believe we have to do. Because with that sense of separation comes insecurity, vulnerability, unhappiness, depression, anxiety, stress, jealousy, envy. All these words, concepts, or psychological problems are all words. All words that we believe are real. Add to this pattern, drop some of them, take away a few, but recognising the word is not the real, it's not the thing, and look at that and see. Can you drink the word water? Can the word fire burn you? You can't. This word I or me. If it's just a concept, a word, what can it do? If there's no I or me, it means that's what it is. No me, no I. And without the me, or without the I, pause the thought right now. I'm not saying I or me. Just settle down. Wasn't it seen, recognised in that? You didn't disappear. It wasn't the end of you. Some of you might be still thinking. Didn't you notice there was a deeper silence in this room? A more noticeable stillness? Or put that down as awareness. What we call awareness. You can't say what awareness is, but you know it, because you recognise for a start of, I'm not unaware right now. Then you look around, you see all these patterns, shapes and forms, and recognise there is an awareness of all the things in this room. And if there's awareness of something means it's not you, it must be an object. And you realise we're aware of everything that appears in this man. It's all objective. And objection is not the reality, is not the actual. But also have a look at it and say, what if that awareness wasn't there? What if that life wasn't there? And you know of things that have died, you've seen things that have died, and you realise they disappear. They're gone. And have a look at the space. If it's all the content of space, it's all contained in space, and space has no beginning. You can't pinpoint or find a beginning to it. It can have no end if it hasn't got a beginning. It has no boundaries, no centre, no circumference, no shape or no form. This room, space in this room, seemingly takes on the shape and form of the room. But the space is suffusing the walls that are seeming boundary. Anything else, the trees, the patterns, shapes and forms, suffusing all these bodies. And though the appearance might appear to be solid and substantial, it is nothing but that cognising emptiness. That's what the Buddha calls it, a cognising emptiness. Now it's empty of all these patterns, shapes and forms. And we think we cognise or know this emptiness. But the Buddha made the statement that emptiness is form, pointing out that this seeming cognizing emptiness. The cognizing or knowing is patterning, shaping and forming all the appearances that are appearing in it. Emptiness is form, and these forms, though they appear to be solid, substantial and real, are nothing but the emptiness. So all the sounds and feelings and things that appear in this room when we come in and the chattering is going on, and things of feeling and things, and there's a sense of well-being and niceness in it and everything. It's all appearance. It's only seemingly so. And when one or two or more are gathered together, there's a recognition of it, if you allow it to happen. A recognizing of that cognizing emptiness, cognizing it in its natural and real state. That though I appear to be this separate entity, and all the rest of this manifestation appears in it, how is it appearing? And the recognition is realised and recognised it's being seen. There is a seeing of it. And isn't that so? How does this seeing come about? Well, when you realise what you're coming from, that vibrating patterns of sperm and ovum from your father and your mother, and that sperm has the capacity of swimming and penetrating the ovum, and the ovum has the capacity of attaching to the wall of the uterus, and the sperm swims to the ovum and penetrates the ovum and forms a little embryo. Didn't need a you or a me. The you or the me wasn't there. But those two coming together became what you now call you or me. Taken on, this become the pattern, the life. But it was just the absolute patterning, shaping, forming and expressing in all its diversity, in all its life forms, intelligently and in essence real, absolute, perfect. But we learnt words. Instead of saying in that birth you were born as the absolute, and you are still expressing the absolute, and it is the only way the absolute can recognise itself, recognise itself, through expressing in seemingly separate patterns, shapes and forms. And each pattern, shape and forms sees it in a different way, in a different light. A lot of the pattern might take it to be seemingly the same, but it's constantly changing. And the belief and the sense of separation comes stronger, and the concepts we take on become seemingly more real and absolute, and so the fears, the stress, the anxiety, the guilt and unhappiness becomes more pronounced and more believed in, until something comes up, hey, wait a minute, there's got to be a bit more to it than this. Am I this body? Am I this mind? Am I these words, concepts or ideas, a person? Because it's told that some of these are recognizable, telling you the false cannot stand up to investigation. Simple and right. So if I believe that I am this self, it'll stand up to investigation. I won't be able to negate it or get past it. But who or what am I? That's what they tell you to look at. Who am I? Well, what's that I am. That's a question. Who am I is a question. What's a question? It's a group of words. And I am, believe that this I am, which is words, I am is the questioner. So if I am is the questioner, just a group of words, and I'm asking the question, who am I, which is also a question with words, wouldn't the realising come about that the question, I am, is the question? Who am I? Who am I is I am. A question. Well, I am a question or a questioner. You know that you're not a question because a question appears on you. What are you prior to the word? Before the word? What can you say without a word? Because words are questions, thoughts are images. Well, you call yourself a human being. Words. You call God to believe in this thing that you've got to find to become that'll take me out of this trap of jealousy, envy and unhappiness. Got to find out who I am. And who I am, or I am so-and-so, is small words. So the questioner becomes the question, or the question becomes the questioner. What am I without the word? Have a look. What can you say without the word? You can't say, I am not. Of course I can say, I am not. But who or what is saying it? It's the words, again, that are saying, I am not. If I am not the word, pause the thought right now. Does that awareness disappear? You don't have the word on it, what we call awareness, what you know is awareness, the very knowing, which is another word, or the very beingness that you are, the sense of being is still there without the word. So that I am, you are, is the mind, and you are prior to that word. You're before the mind, because that sense of presence, the I amness, appears in that presence awareness, that space-like awareness. It's another pattern, shape or form that appears in the space-like awareness. In recognising I'm not the word, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not a concept, but breathing, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching. Life is functioning. What must I be? Well, there it is. Life is functioning. I must be that life. But is it your life, or this life, or any other life? If life is here, and there's patterning, shaping and forming there must be life there. And where is there? Without that concept, it is basically here. So there's no here, no there, no beginning, no end, no me, you, I, this, or anything else. As Benke will tell you when he pointed out, he said, everything is perfectly resolved in the unborn Buddha mind. He called it that pure mind as unborn Buddha mind, he called it. Meaning the same mind that we got. And what does unborn mean? It means without a thought, without a pattern, without a shape, without a form. Just as it is right now. There's still patterns, shapes and forms here. There's still an awareness of being. I am this being which I cannot negate. It is not becoming or not will be. So trying to become something which we fall into is impossible because it implies a future time. And time itself is another concept. Leaves me, this so-called me, as pure being. And when I say being is not becoming, it's not wasing, and it's not static. The ing on it, being, just like thinking, seeing, tasting, is something that's happening right now. It's an occurrence, something going on, seemingly to me. And that's where it's divided, in relating to a believed-in conceptual image, which is nothing but a thought. And what's your next thought going to be? You'll all tell me that I don't know what my next thought is going to be, because thoughts come up, they arise. But as soon as they come up, they're claimed by me. I am thinking this thought. So I formed the idea or concept of a thinker, which is another thought. So the thinker is the thought. I think. So thinking is happening, and it's translated by the thought, I think. Seeing is happening, and you say, I see. But does the thought I see actually see? The thought doesn't see. Seeing is happening. The seeing is happening. It's translated by the thought I see. The same with the hearing, the tasting, the touching, the smelling, the feeling, the fears, the anxiety. All the ings is something that's going on in the moment. But they are all words, concepts, ideas, or images. And that's where it all begins for us. In the beginning was the Word. The little child doesn't know anything about it. First couple of years of his life. Go back and try and remember and see you were doing what you're doing before you learnt any words. If you could tell me. You can't. Because for this particular pattern, before the words were learnt, it was being, and when it took on words, the sense of separation from the pure being became into this being that I am this person, I am this entity, I am this individual. And it's carried on ever since, until recognise there's got to be a bit more to life than this, with all the suffering and anxiety and stress that's going on. And it turns us to look a little bit deeper. And you might turn on something like this, is away from the usual church-like scriptures which are telling you you're a sinner, you're an unhappy, you're an ignorant or a bad person, putting all the concepts and ideas of a devil and a heaven and a hell, all words, and we believe it because we never question it. And they tell you that in the Bible, how it all began. In the beginning, Adam and Eve in paradise, the two so-called first human beings, in paradise, having a great life. Everything's going well. But they ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. What do they mean by that? That means that they learnt words. They picked up words. The semi-knowledge or knowing came about. Instead of pure knowing, pure being, now it's knowing this and that. And of course, they've shut themselves out of paradise and begin to live in this world of the so-called human feeling. And it's grown from there on. But there's always been someone who was recognised, looked into it deep enough and recognised, and passed it on. And in the old days there were very few ways of passing it on. So it was passed on from one to another, and only very few could hear it or recognise it. And those few were set up as saints, sages, saviours and seers that knew. And we didn't know. So we had to listen, set them up, do what they told us to do, instead of realising and questioning it ourselves just the same as they questioned it and corrupted it with the belief that they were somehow superior and better to what I am. But there's always been a few again that have seen through it and keep it going. And doing so today, with the ways of communication today, more and more can hear it and understand it. And the more that hear it and understand it is going to make the world a much better place to live in the recognition of that. And I better quit from here because I'm going on too long.
Never.
And you've all got a say in it. Each one of you neatly know it. And those that have recognised it, point it out. You can learn the way and start pointing at that others may hear about it. And those that have got doubts, ask questions where the seeming doubt is, so that doubt is seen through and falls away and disbands. No doubt there. There's an absolute certainty, and there are people in here that know that. So tell us about it, though that others may hear it. So away you go. Get into it. Cattle, tell you.
Yes, so we don't really have any questions from our online community. We have quite a lot of welcome messages, but no questions. So that's the time for you to contribute. Ask questions, share, say what you know, what resonated, what didn't.
Well, kind of all resonated because there's nothing more to say.
Yeah, but you can highlight, say the same thing, because that will sound differently from your...
It depends on the words, doesn't it? Yeah.
Just repeat what you said to me just before the meeting started.
Yeah,
It is
please.
very good for everyone.
Well, he said that too anyway.
Yeah, but yes.
It was just the case that some people don't pick it up direct, although Bob covered everything today, I really think he did. But that essence, that life, that beingness, the words that he uses there, appears to have 3 or 4 distinct attributes, and that is, of course, space, awareness, and energy. And those 3 are just appearing attributes because they're not separate. It's all just the one thing. But if you can see space, awareness, and energy, which you can see in everything, and if you can recognise that that's all there actually is, then everything else that your senses are picking up are a misinterpretation of that. And the misinterpretation is what we're getting caught up on. And that's about it.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. You want to comment
And
on
how
that?
did you say to abide in it, in that awareness? No.
Two phases are first the recognition, of which Bob has said now at least a dozen or 2 dozen times this morning. There's 2 phases. There's the recognition, which is that awakening. It's seeing things as they actually are and not as you misperceive them. And then there's the realization, and the realization is abiding in that recognition so that it becomes a 24/7 thing. That takes a longer time because we have habitual tendencies. So even though you can recognize the true nature of mind and the true nature of phenomena, realizing it to where it's no longer requires an ongoing recognition, but it is simply a part of the expression of everything that you are and it is, takes a little bit longer.
As you say, abiding.
Yes.
Mm.
And there's no one that's abiding and there's nothing abiding in, but yes.
But what about those ones that want to have that first recognition like me? You had some guidance about that as well?
It can be slightly different for different people.
How to actually be aware of being aware in a way. We start from there.
Awareness of awareness is one way. There's so many different ways. That's one way of looking at it. But then if you're aware of awareness, who is it that's aware of the awareness?
No one.
Well, it's awareness, isn't it?
Yes.
Awareness becomes aware of itself because it can know itself. And in fact, it is the only thing that can know itself. Nothing can know the indescribable except that which is indescribable. And if you're looking at being aware of aware, and there's nothing else there than awareness, you're there. You've just got to accept that.
I have a lot of doubts about that. So, but
Are you unaware right now?
No, I'm aware.
There you are.
And that's
I mean,
it.
you have no doubts about that, right? Do you
No
have any doubts?
No.
Okay, good.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. The things that you have doubts about, there's just a mind shit. You may have doubts about, popular dietary fashion or conspiracy theory or any other ideas about how to become something that you imagined that you would be or should be in the future. That's all nonsense. That's all thinking.
It's because you think that there's something more than what there really is that you've got to doubt.
Yes.
Are you aware of the doubts?
Yes.
Well, if you're aware of them, must be an object.
Yes.
So you are not the doubt.
Yeah.
You must be the awareness of the doubt.
Yeah. But I wouldn't say the recognition has happened yet.
You're aware
How
of
do
that?
you know?
You just had it.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
That's it. It's that simple,
That's
but you can't accept it.
You are aware of that belief
Yeah.
that recognition didn't happen to imagined entity. You are aware of that thought form coming through the space. You can hear it speaking, right? You are aware of that thought.
Yes.
So whether the thought said I get it or the thought says I don't get it, it doesn't really matter. The awareness of those thoughts is what you are,
Is it?
not the
Okay.
content of what the thought is saying.
Okay, I got that, but I recognize that, but I didn't recognize yet.
When there's no thought.
No, but I didn't recognize that everyone else is that as well.
Correct.
I just
Well,
know
don't
that
put
I'm
that-
that maybe.
You don't worry about
am.
anybody else at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
That comes.
They are, they're appearing in your dream, and you may be projecting on them that they are wise or stupid or pretty, but
Right.
that's just thoughts again.
Your awareness of everybody in the room.
Sorry?
Your awareness of everybody in the room.
Yes.
Well, they're all objects to you.
Mm-hmm.
You're aware of something, it's an object.
An appearance.
Yes.
An appearance.
Okay.
All objective. Who's the subject?
I can't find that.
No,
Yeah. Doesn't
You
exist.
say, I can't find it. Well, who's saying that?
Who is saying it?
Yeah, who's saying I can't find
I don't really know. Someone is saying it. No one.
it? You don't know. Is there a knowing of that? that you don't know?
Yes.
Who's knowing?
Yeah, that.
That, exactly.
Mm. But, yeah, but there is always a but. Yes, so I should just worry about that. Because I don't
worry
see
about
that
it.
you guys are that as well. I just feel like maybe I am that, but
Just come back to the awareness. You know, you say, but there is always a but. But you are aware of that but. There is an
Yes.
awareness of the
Yes.
but. So instead of following the but, what's behind it, stay with the awareness.
right.
There is awareness that people in the room, blah, 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 something wrong or left with them, whatever. But there is an awareness of that scene. Stay with the awareness. Put your heart in the awareness and not the content of it. This is this is a really radical paradigm shift from the mind objectifying and making sense and interpreting and having a story about what's happening in the symbolic language, and shifting out of that chatter and putting your heart into the mystery of existence itself. Not the objects of being, but the awareness of the being of those objects. Awareness first. And this you have no doubts about. You just don't love it enough. You love your mind, you love your speculation, you love the wanting to have so-called intellectual understanding, which is always just another belief system.
Yes.
It's good to know, isn't it?
Yes.
And if there's no subject, there can't be an object.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And as always, and I can tell, there is a lot of people around the world who watches the video who really, really appreciates and love your contribution, your courage, your vulnerability, and your openness, and the way you articulate it, which is beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that. Thank you, Mitra. On behalf of me, everybody, thanks for remaining in that one position. You're right on the edge, aren't you? Pushed over into reality. Yeah, we are just life. That really strikes me really beautifully. That life is what I am without question. Nothing. There's no exception to that. That's an absolute condition, isn't it? Is there any way in which I can find fault with the fact that I'm life? No, I don't think so. Can anyone find fault with that? Your life. You know what life is. And life is not held by the skin line, is it? Life is beyond, and it's communicating with everything. It's not limited at all. I'm just looking at these two gang cockatoos on the side of the tissue box. I had some in the yard the other day. Beautiful things. They really communicate. They live in pairs and for ages, and they're just wonderful, wonderful things that express life as they fly through the garden and everything. Am I any different to that? No, I can't make myself clear here. So I'll just shut up. But you get me, maybe somewhere. Okay, boss.
Thank you. I have a question that's probably not a really nice subject to bring up, but it hit me during the week like a Mack truck. That if I am life, then I'm also rape, torture, famine.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it kind of rattled me, to be honest, because there was, I don't know if this is true or if this is just the mind messing with me, but it felt like there was another layer of accountability, responsibility, acceptability, that if I am that, I'm also all those other things that Tasha deems as nasty. And it kind of wasn't really nice. And then I thought, oh man, how do I marry that? Like, I want to be the nice things, or I want God or the absolute to be the nice things, but not necessarily the yucky things. Like, what do you do with that?
That's beautiful.
It is?
It's beautiful that you actually look into it. Because it is the uncompromising non-duality that we are talking about. And non-duality unconditionally accepts that there is no day without night. It can't exist.
I could feel it.
Yes.
Almost as if I was
So as
the psychopath,
yeah.
for example.
Give her a knife.
Sorry. I could feel no separation, no difference between myself and psychopathy, or myself and rape, or myself and beauty, myself and a leaf. And I found that quite disturbing, because I would rather be the leaf floating than the psychopath waiting to prey. It's almost like on a cellular level, there was no distinction.
What is a psychopath?
I don't want to go into it right now, because that's...
An idea.
I understand that intellectually from an idea. I understand that from a non-conceptual, intellectual word point of view. But this was different to head knowledge. This was, oh fuck, I am psychopathy.
No, you're not.
Not me. Not Tasha is.
Because the nature,
The awareness is.
nature of awareness is none of those things.
Then it can't be love either. Then it can't be pleasure and absolute either if it's not that.
You're right. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's not good.
It's nothing
It's
and
not
it's
bad.
everything.
It's pretty bad to the victim.
It's not good or bad.
I don't know how to marry that. I don't know what to do with it. I'm just aware that it's sitting there.
Yeah, relatively, from the human perspective, everything is good and bad and pleasant and painful. And what is good is what is pleasant. And what is bad is what is unpleasant. You can look at the mosquito perspective, or bacterium perspective, or Amazon forest perspective. And the good and bad will shift differently. The radical non-duality is about lack of perspective, completely dropping reference point. From the reference point, you have beautiful heart, which is all for the goodness and love and pleasure and helping others and compassion. That is the human perspective, and that is fully to be embraced and appreciated, because that is part of the way the life expresses through the form. But ultimately, what is it that expresses through the form is neutral, is beyond good and bad, is beyond pleasure and pain, dark and light, day and night. In essence, it doesn't have qualities of goodness and love. It expresses those qualities, but it can only express them if it has the opposite. You couldn't know the health if there was no sickness. You couldn't know the love if there was no hatred. That's the only way the life can experience and express itself as all those patterns that are so colorful and so diverse, because each and every one has the opposite. See, could you ever know the day without the night?
It was definitely a fullness of life happening.
Yes.
And if I'm really honest, although I don't want to admit ever publicly, there was actually a liberation in that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, not me, not Tasha, I'm not a psychopath, but if there was no separation from that, then there was a liberation in knowing that that's just what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something felt more freer. The mind was a little bit revolted. The mind doesn't want to know. The Tasha doesn't want to know. But something inside felt more expansive.
Yes.
But you are the,
Bob wanted to say
you're
something.
the lion. You're,
Yeah,
you-
let Bob, you want to say something?
If you know that you are everything, well, you're not going to bother about these other things. You're going to let them go. You don't have to attach to them or be in them. And then when you're being that, these things you can become a victim quite easy. But if you recognise that you are absolute, who or what can touch you or do anything to you? And what would you want?
you're
All these things fall away.
You're beyond all that. And, that I was going to say you're the lion that stalks the antelope. You're also the antelope, and they're you're blades of grass that die for lack of water in the sun, and all these things happen. The earthquake victims in their thousands that have no homes or life in front of them. Maybe all these things appear and disappear, but you are that experiences and sees it all too.
And who, in the face of all that, who doesn't want to be? I mean, that livingness is still expressing itself in everything lives and dies. And you might say it's unfair, but that's a thought too. So
it's just a bit shocking for the human. The mind was better able to accept it than the body. It's when the body started to open up to it, open up to the realisation that, oh, I am all those things as well.
It's the body's conditioned.
That was
by
a bit
the
shocking.
previous mind that wasn't awake, and it hasn't learnt yet.
Right.
It will get through to the body, and then the body will accept it.
I'll go back to being a hummingbird.
yeah.
Yeah, thank
Just
you.
a sec, sorry.
So, from what you were saying, Bob, is it true that who we truly are comes before the words I am? Or is it that I am? Or is it that I am that? Or as Jesus said, I am that I am? So, which is the way to most clearly see who I truly am?
Well, it's the sense of presence as translated by the thought, I am. You are aware of being present right now, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
So you are that presence awareness. How would you describe it? Somebody asks you who you are, you say, I am so-and-so. You put your name on it instead of realising I am that essence, the life. Christ said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. Not talking about himself, but talking about that sense of presence, which he expresses through the mind as the thought. I am. The thought is not it, it's just a vibration.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, I got caught off on that I am for a while. So it's more the feeling into I am rather than any thought-based I am. And I think even dropping the I and just saying am is more immediate.
Amness.
Just an amness.
That's part of the verb to be.
Prior to...
That's part of the verb to be. Yeah.
Well, just a thought.
Well, I've heard that I am not this body and I am not these thoughts, feelings, sensations or desires. So, how did you mean, if I can ask you, that you accessed it through feeling?
Well, it's more just that sense of presence. So, just coming back to the immediacy of now without the mind. So as soon as the mind wants to jump in and try to work it out and go off into a tangent, it's just watching that and coming back to this space. So it's bringing attention, taking attention away from the mind and keeping the attention in the heart space, not location, but the core of the being prior to... It's tricky, but...
The core of the being.
The core of the being without a concept. Yeah.
You may try not to be and see how well you do. Because, if you attempt to not exist in a way, try to experience non-existence, and you see that you can't, then you know that existence is always there, whether you're thinking on top of it or you're not thinking on top of it. Existence is always there, you can't stop it. And this is that thing. It doesn't have any sensation, it doesn't tingle, it doesn't giggle, it doesn't feel warm or hot, nothing. But it can't be denied or stopped. It's completely neutral, like space. That's why they call it space-like awareness. But Anita has the mic.
I was just going to add to that what has already been said in the awareness can only be right now. Can't be anywhere else. In presence. And it's ever present. So there is nothing but awareness in the now. But mind, the illusion that mind comes and takes that, into thought, and interprets it. But awareness is just nowness. Isness and nowness.
Yeah. I love the discussion today. It's just so very relevant because I got sucked into a Butte drama last night and it was still resonating when I went to bed. But the thought of the picture theatre or the screen without the movie playing was really interesting. And then the Bible story of Adam and Eve the Garden of Eden, and everything being paradise, which was how it was before this argument broke out. But the mind, wasn't at play. And then with all these declamations of who was right and who was evil and who was wrong and who was a baddie and who was a goodie, and trying to take sides in that and trying to take a position, I'd eaten the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, and suddenly chaos breaks out. And then I'm thinking, I'm going to get back and talk to them today and tell them where they're wrong.
Yeah, it's charged like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes like talking about this from a Western perspective. Of we use the word God. Bob doesn't like to use the word understandably, because if you're Hindu, you have one thought, and Christians have another, and oh God, go on forever. But at the same time, there seems to be, like with at least you've got Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and like that way of looking at God. They seem to think of God as a creator, okay, and God is good. They're definitely good. But I love, I remember it's just fun to challenge them on that. Really, is that good? Is it good? So I also, at one point, if God is omniscient, right, knows everything. That's why they have in the Bible Revelations, because it's telling you what's going to happen. Or God would have known before making Lucifer, which should become Satan, because he thought he was separate. Why do you think he was separate? He thought he was better than, which is not the same as. He didn't say, I am God. He said, I'm more than God. I'm better than. It could have been the same thing if he'd said, I was less than God. You know what I'm saying? So either way, more than or less than, you're separate, right? So anyway, he's separated from God. And then became, a snake and tempted Adam and Eve to eat from that same fruit of knowledge of good and evil that Lucifer did. I don't know if I'm making sense to you, right? And then the rest is history, right? We all know what happened then. And the whole thing snowballed from there. But God made Lucifer anyway, knowing that Lucifer was going to do that, think it was better than, you know what I mean? Believe it was better than. How fucked up is that? You know what I mean? I mean, really, you would do that? You would make something knowing it was going to do that? That's not good. You know what I mean? At least I'm not saying that's not good. But then at the same time, that's just a thought. You know what I'm saying? That's just a thought. So it's, and all of this separation, that's really what's bringing on that I got to rape. Now, I can't speak for the tsunami. That might be exactly what has to happen. You know what I mean? But the torture and the rape and all, you know what I mean? All of that's coming from an I that has to fix things and make it better and improve. And you know what I'm saying? I don't know if it helps. I'm just babbling on that.
I have a couple of online comments from our online community. And here is D. I'm wondering why Bob talks so much about words, concepts, etc. Is it to show us what we are not?
Yeah. That's what I told you. In the beginning was the Word. Mm-hmm. That's where all our problems start from. When we learn words. Animals got no words. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. That's why they set this thing up as a God. That's just a word also. All things were made by Him, by the Word. Isn't that so? Tree, flower, there was nothing made that was made without the Word. But what was it if you haven't got any words?
Yeah.
What's the animal saying? It's not saying it's a tree, it's a flower, but they're knowing what everything is there, but there's no concepts about it. Mm. Or they're not making plans of what they're going to do tomorrow or the next day. They just do what comes up.
Yeah, so it is to show what we are not. It is also to show what actually taken over what we were and created the words, create the conceptual image, which later on belief comes into and identification begins. So words are really a source of all the human conundrum. And now we have JB saying the awareness of the doubt is before the doubt even begins. That was quite a while ago when Mitra was talking about the doubt. And Vivek says, ignore the duality. Good and bad, love or hate, are two ends of the same stick. Ignore it and see what is behind it. Beautifully said. And Tazi says, why try to describe it? You are it. That's it.
And the description can never be the described.
What Tasha was saying brought something up for me, and it's really quite visceral in the body, because I was assaulted in my home a couple of years ago, and it was about getting through that process of that, you know, what people are capable of, and that person worked actually next door to where I was working at the time. So there was there's this body reaction, which I still get from time to time. And there was that process of working through that, of knowing that it took me a while, but I could see that was me as well, the attacker and everything. There's given that life circumstance and that situation, that person had to do what they did. There was no other, because it happened, so it had to happen. But so there's still the body reaction, which I get from time to time.
Also had to happen.
Which also had to happen, but it also brought me closer to seeing that he is me and I am him, in a really weird sort of a way. But that doesn't mean the body reaction, as I said, isn't there, because it's there. But there's also a certain clarity came from that, you know, there was the process involving going through the court and going through the thing, but then there was also a process of letting go of my attachment to what happened, and that was what was keeping me in a much more uncomfortable zone, even though I know this is happening to my body now. That's separate to that. And yeah, it just has to happen. I don't know how else to put it, but
that's perfect.
Yeah, but I learned something out of that process as well, and I think that's the key. If you can somehow tap into something bigger than that, what happened.
Absolutely.
But anyway, that's all. But that was an incredible learning process, but it still resonates in the body, and that's fine. But
and that's a brilliant description. That's beautiful, because you include everything. You include that the human pattern will always have the preference for pleasure and loving to be, but there is also that mind which wants to be right and make someone wrong. But there is also a clarity that someone is a product of the environment and is absolutely inseparable from the environment which you are part of. So there is no separation. In the deepest clarity, yes, things, as Bob sometimes quotes, desiderata, the universe certainly unfolds as it should. And in that whole landscape, there is a body resisting discomfort, there is mind narrating that body resisting discomfort and creating a story of me and the other, and all of it is included, and it happens in that clarity, in that open field of awareness that you are, in which that separation between the objects of the landscape is only on the screen, in the movie. Yeah, paradoxically, none of it is, none of it is true, and all of it is true in a way. That's why it says it is completely beyond the language and beyond the description, because no description, you can't take definite position, oh, this is right, or this is wrong. Everyone went through the periods in their life of injustice, perhaps, or someone let you down, or you let someone down, or like you see the character defect which hurt someone, or whatever is happening in the landscape, is always an invitation to look at those players in the game, but remember the screen on which that whole play happens. And it's and the sense of guilt, oh, I shouldn't have done it, oh, I shouldn't have thought that thought, oh, I shouldn't have reacted, or they shouldn't have done. Well, that's the part of the landscape that also has to be there, because it also plays a role. Although that one is the words and concepts which create the conundrum and the human suffering when believed. If I believe things should be different than they are, well, there is me and the things, and there is a separation, and I'm right and the world is wrong, and I suffer, because obviously the world shows up as it does.
You're fighting with reality.
Yes.
You're going to lose it every time.
Absolutely. And we have Gilbert say, where is it all seen from? Where are you seeing from? From an idea? From being a person? The person is empty. Yeah.
It's also summarized like with Nisargadatta very well. Like wisdom is knowing I am nothing, and love is knowing I'm everything, and between those two my life oscillates. I think he says something like that.
Yes.
And it's just so clear. Like he just summarizes the whole play that we're talking about today really clearly. But Bob also summarizes it very clearly too. In your own Bob, your little way.
Yeah. And to the same effect, really. Showing, including everything and excluding everything. Talking about the emptiness and talking about the totality or the absolute. That's really just different words to show. And to say that the words, the truth is beyond language. So you either say the eternity and the zero, or the everything and the nothing, or you say both, or you say neither, or you include the whole thing, and the mind is confused enough to just give up and stop working it out and embrace the moment.
Actually, you said something different today that I hadn't heard before, which was you talked about the emptiness, and then you said like this room. You described the room and the wall, and then you said the wall is infused with the emptiness, or suffused with the emptiness, and it was like fantastic, because usually we see it the other way around, like the emptiness is suffused with the wall, or like what I mean. The emptiness is the wall is a adornment in the emptiness, but the emptiness is the wall is the emptiness. They're the same thing. Like it was just you just said it in a different way, and it was like, oh, that's pretty cool, Bob.
The wall is the awareness too,
Well, yeah.
Anyone
like to say something?
And what struck me is like the awareness has no opinions of anything. Do you know what I mean? It's just sitting there. It doesn't need to know anything or understand anything or work anything out. So that's what struck me there, and what can appear as potentially from that duality, what looks really bad, we don't know what that's about, and it may be the catalyst for something else. Not that there's cause and effect, but it's sort of like, there had to be a lot of horror stuff happened personally here for something to open up and change. So we don't know what that's about, or in the grander scheme of things. Do you know what I mean? If we scan out and go, well, it's all just interacting and changing, and there's a plan behind it, apparently, or no plan. Yeah.
A couple of things. Like, if you were all-powerful, almighty, and all-knowing, so if you are that, how would you even know what you are? And if you are that, why wouldn't you split into everything you could possibly be, and every combination and permutation that you could ever be? Why wouldn't you do that?
Why wouldn't you do that?
So why wouldn't you have the pain and the suffering and the... And the other thing with the I am, like, I found that really confusing as well. But if you that's a thought, even the I am or I, or trying to be the I. But what's beyond the I. So if you wait for your next thought, so if you actually stop now and just wait for it, you don't know what it's going to be, right? But you let it go. There always has to be a gap between each thought. So what happens in between if you're just in that space between thoughts? What does that feel like? Can you go there?
And there's something already there.
There's
Like,
not, yeah.
The mind trying to, like, it can never, it's always going to be unhappy because it can't experience it. Like, the mind looking for it is going to, it's just beating its head against the wall because it's a thought that can't experience what I am. So it's seeing that there's something there without the thoughts. So it's overlooking the elephant in the room, so to speak. There's a massive presence already there. It's just the mind's going, no, that can't be it. This isn't good enough, or because it can't feel it. It's trying to get it, but it can't feel it. So yeah.
I think it's what you're referring to as the awareness of those thoughts, not the actual thoughts, because the thoughts are just moving one from the other. But but it's what is aware, the witness of those thoughts.
But even a witness.
It's a start though.
Even a witness is kind of there, so there's like a thought, something that's aware of the thought, like so me, if you want to call it that or whatever, but there's something that has to, the thought, it just is. Something has to be there for both to be there. So it's what, I think you're right, but what, you can't put it in words, really.
It's simple. It's being rather than becoming.
Yeah.
It's very well summed up in the title of the book, What's Wrong with Right Now, without a thought. I mean, to pause, and you can't pause thinking for very long because thinking just happens, but in that awareness of no thing or just that pause, you can't say there's anything right or wrong because as soon as you start going there, you're going into thinking. So thinking, you see it has to arise on awareness. The awareness is primary. Then the thought tries to understand awareness. It's impossible for any thought to contain awareness because the thought has to arise in the awareness. I don't know if that sounds confusing.
Yeah, and especially that you can't even say that awareness is. You can't even say that it exists. That's the mystery of awareness. It is a field of potentiality. It doesn't exist until it expresses as some sort of a vibration.
Yes,
There's a potential for vibration. In the language, it seems like, oh yeah, there is some sort of a screen, and on that screen something appears, but the screen can't be found.
No.
It neither exists nor it doesn't. It appears to be, but
just is.
There is isness.
Yeah. Just wanted to.
It's just nonsense to the mind in a way.
Yeah.
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 Just want to address that statement that Tasha, is it? Tasha was making. When I spoke before, I mentioned the fact that there's the spaciousness, the awareness, and the energy. Other terms that can be used for that is that there's an essence, a nature, and a capacity. And that which has an unlimited capacity. There's no boundaries to it or whatever. The fact that you perceive a good and a bad, which we've spoken about as already just words and a dualistic way of looking at it, it's only those that misperceive what is that act in ways that appear bad. It's not that the capacity has any goodness or badness. And if you're not misperceiving, you won't act in those ways. It just doesn't happen because you see everything as the nature of your own self, the nature of what is, and you will just express love and compassion. It is just natural for that essence to be that way. It can't kind of be any other way because it's simply itself, right? It doesn't cause itself harm, so to speak. It's incapable of that. And it's only the misperception that can use the capacity that exists to manifest in that direction. Make sense?
Shakespeare says it pretty well too, like nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
And we also have last word from
Last word.
Gilbert. Unless anyone else wanted to have last word, no? Okay, so he says, how many ways do you want it to be expressed? Is there a limit? Is reality waiting for you to catch up? Yeah, so that's a good last word. And
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Bob. Thank you, Kat. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Gilbert, too.